fuck they out?
I have to tell the story of when I went to the rescue response for Hurricane Harvey, because somebody encouraged me today to tell my story, and this is a very small piece of the story from what I witnessed on the ground. For me to finally discuss this openly is the fact that Fema is trying to put their prison ships out at Port Arthur, Texas, to give a place for people to live because their homes have been destroyed or whatever. But if you hear
What the fuck they on? I don't know what the fuck they on. I don't know what the fuck they on.
part of the background story of what was actually going on down there, then it brings credence to those who put out some of these theories because they have read the FEMA papers, or they have read the government documents into these things. Now, those things are put out as conspiracy theories, because the government doesn't want people to know what's going on. And before I get too far into this, I want to say that I think that a lot of what happens in these situations is compliance, ignorance, and the fact that officials don't want their tenure at their government job to mar their record or
they're all numbered, huh? One. But these are kind of smaller than the other ones, right? Oh, dude. It looks like they got a bunch of them. Look, they're all that.
When I rolled through, the militia had taken over a liquor warehouse that was in basically like a strip mall. And the back of the strip mall had a fence on the back side of it, which gave them operational security because they had boundaries and borders. They took over the whole alleyway and had guys on the roof and were able to secure their position and where they were at. And I quickly found a place that we were able to bed down, have a safe place. And the first thing that I noticed there, that it was like the purge. All I could hear that night was car alarms going off and glass breaking and gunshots. Luckily, I was able to bed down and get things ready and unpack my guns and ammunition, and I got zero sleep that first night.
Oh, there's another roof just went by me. Oh my gosh! LA, stay lane!
The reason why Hurricane Harvey was not Katrina was because of the
We need to make sure too that whenever we knock on doors, people refuse to leave. We need to make note, call it in.
They say there are no orders to use force, just strong persuasion, sometimes entering open houses with guns drawn, and instructions to disarm anyone inside.
You say guns will be taken? No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
That happened today in this wealthy neighborhood.
It's like Grand Theft Auto. Somebody was on a jet ski with pistols in both hands, like firing their guns into people's homes in the Katy area. And DPS showed up. That's Department of Public Safety. For those of you who don't understand, that is basically the Highway Patrol of Texas. And they were putting a DPS agent on every boat and every car going out to do these rescues. The DPS agent that rode with me for several hours was a member of CID, which is Criminal Investigation Detectives or Criminal Investigation Units, and they wanted to make sure that we had our guns with us. So I had a Highway Patrol chick in my car as we were dispatched to go out, and was told to grab my AK-47 and have my pistol on my hip because of what they were involved in. Now, at the time, I didn't realize why DPS was being put on every boat and every truck. And over the next several hours, while they were with me in my vehicle and questioning them, I was messing with her bad. I was talking about taxation being theft, and about, you know, nonviolent crimes and all this other stuff. But all joking aside, I always have my ways of finding out information. Never underestimate my ability to find shit out. So I got an inside track of what was going on. They sent me to Kingsland, I forget the town. It was the same place I had been earlier that morning with the militia, and was basically a dead end because they had already pulled everybody out, and that area had already been basically taken care of. So we were rerouted to the Katy area, and the message that the DPS agent got and informed us of was they were going to be blowing the dam in Katy, Texas, and that was the message we got, and that there was an emergency to go and get people out. We made our way down to Katy, Texas, and when we got there, we were stopped because they had finally blocked the roads down. And
they were loading up with as many people, it's got to be dozens of people in the back of that thing. Gosh. They take them to a nearby Walmart, and then the Walmart is where I guess metro buses or school buses will take them to the shelter. The question is, what shelter are they taking them to? And
so I'm sorry if I'm rude in the words that I'm using, but it's just the way that it's coming out. So we got stopped at the area where FEMA and National Guard was setting up at this mall. The mall was, I forget the name of the mall. It was like Alumni Mall, or it was something like that. And they were going to use I-10 as a makeshift dam. And they had trucks there full of gravel, and they were shutting down the highway because they were going to use I-10 as a buffer from flooding Houston again. But they were going to release the water. I was told they were going to blow the dam. And in doing so, they were going to flood this Katy area again and hope that I-10 was...
Here at the Civic Center, man, it's flooded out. We inside the Civic Center. Man, inside, look at this. We inside. They got people all in the bleachers. They got mattresses on top of chairs, people on top of tables, people in the bleachers, people sleeping on the couch, people sitting outside click-clacking, chit-chatting, and the workers standing around.
What they did, instead of announcing it publicly, they did not evacuate people. They locked the roads down and told rescuers to get out of the area, and left people in their homes to drown, basically. So the DPS agents told these federal agents to get out of their way because they were going in to save Texans. And again, the only reason why the stories coming out of Texas were not Katrina was because Texans were helping Texans, to the point of even the highway patrolmen telling federal agents to get out of their way. They were going in to save Texans. And I believe on that afternoon, at least 150 people were saved from this one neighborhood that was in the direct path of the release of this dam. I forget the name of the dam at this point in time. laid it out like this. We don't want to have a war zone. We need to get people in there to do rescues. They're not allowing anybody to get into this area. So you're going to follow me. It's normally an hour drive. It's going to take us 4 hours to get there because the roads are so flooded that we have to go on all these different county roads and back ways to get there. Some of that is recorded in my Facebook live videos that I was doing. I was not doing YouTube. I only could do one thing because we were so busy. So I was doing live updates because do it live, right? Don't just record stuff later on. Just put it out there so that people can see what's going on. So we followed this member of the State Department under, he led at least 30 trucks and boats to the Beaumont area. When we get to Beaumont, we get past all of the roadblocks, we get past everything, and we show up at a church. And then he filled us in on what was going on, and they called it Templar 1. That was the mission we were on, was Templar 1. So we go from there, and the pastor prays over us, and we go out from that spot. And we head over to the local Walmart and Academy store where they were setting up the FEMA Fusion Center and makeshift hospital, and they had a helipad there to be able to do rescues and stuff. So they were using the Walmart stores, and they were using the parking lots there and stuff. There were already lines lining up at the Walmart stores that were at least 2 miles long, and people were being rationed 1 case of water, 1 loaf of bread. It was very socialistically done. This is how FEMA works things. They don't always give people what they need. They just give them little pieces here and there. And it's done in a systematically government-controlled socialistic way. And basically there was bread lines forming, and that's exactly what was happening there at that FEMA center.
Some of these people, this is a new normal. They're never going to go back home. So they want to help them as much so that they're never just walking out of here and feeling like they're going back onto the street. They work with them throughout the process here to help them adjust to this new world order that they're going to be living in after this.
Oh, and I imagine there's so many questions, so much concern.
When we got back to the church, I started doing what I do. I grew up in the mountains here in the Ozarks. I don't know if you can see around me, there's beautiful hills and stuff around me. There's lots of lakes and rivers and stuff here. I'm a river rat. I grew up that way. I grew up in the woods of the Ozarks and understand flooding, I understand rivers, I understand the way that water moves and works in the woods. I'm a survivalist. I started looking at the maps. I looked at the dam report and found out that they were going to be releasing water overnight, that 4 foot of water was going to be in downtown, but it wasn't going to be in the next hour. And I quickly put together a plan and was contacted by people on what they thought that I needed to do. And that's as much as I'm going to say about that in this video. Because they didn't recover any of these bodies before they released the water from the dam. So what happened was when they released the water from the dam, those bodies were being washed out to sea. Some of the people that were going to the FEMA Fusion Centers were not to be heard or seen from again. And my security advisor that was there as I was putting together our own Militia Fusion Center was giving me reports back from their boats and from the people that were in the water of bodies that they were seeing with bullet holes in them. They would simply tag these bodies around their ankle or around their wrist and leave them in the water, because when you're in search and rescue, it's a biohazard to bring a dead body onto your boat, and you basically GPS mark where they're at, and later on they can be recovered after the flooding. Because we were there to pull out live bodies out of the water and out of these neighborhoods. But what I was told by local officials and by the State Department official that was there with us was that they were going to be doing gun confiscations because of the violence that had been happening in that area. And I think we all know from Katrina and other things that gun confiscations not only is not going to fucking happen in Texas, it's not going to happen again because of life safety, because of life safety.
New Orleans, they got a lot tougher on the holdouts.
Police department, anyone home?
Not only the flooded areas, but New Orleans' driest and wealthiest neighborhoods, too.
Police department!
The police and National Guard.
We were not allowed to be armed while we were there, and that they were going to come and take our guns and not allow us to be a part of that. So those of you who don't understand right now, there is a civil war happening in this country, and I saw it firsthand on the Texas coast. There are federal officials who were there who were wanting to lock down roads and wanting to wash these bodies out to sea, and there were government officials there that were supporting us in the life safety of saving Texans' lives, pulling them out of their neighborhoods and making sure that they were getting supplies and safety and medical attention. And there were those who were trying to control the situation and lock it down. That first night that I was there, I was doing everything I could to use this facility that we had, and I had realized that the dam that they were releasing was one river over from us, and had the flooding come over to our area, it was going to hit this other river and was still going to wash out to Port Arthur. So I knew we were on dry ground. I knew we were in a safe location. We started setting up shop there. Half of our guys left, ended up chasing their tails for the night, because you can't always put your boats into the raging flood waters. It'll wash your boat out, and it's not safe unless you have the right size motor. But the right size motor for those situations in 4 foot of water with cars and debris and everything else is not the ideal situation. You'll wreck your boat, you'll capsize, and you'll be stuck in the flood waters and become somebody who needs to be rescued also. Within 24 hours, I had more than $50,000 to $100,000 worth of supplies showing up on trucks, along with over 100 armed men and women and medics and corpsmen and people who are not your bullshit militia spouting keyboard warriors that you see on the internet all the time. These are guys who are hardcore motherfuckers that were ready to go in to these little towns and these neighborhoods where they were not doing evacuations, that they were flooding, and preparing. FEMA and other people were flooding these small towns without doing evacuations and didn't care if people were dying. They were taking over supply routes and supply chains of Texans who were sending aid and sending people, and they were confiscating it. And like I said in the beginning of the video, it was, I think half of it was because there were people there to do bad deeds, and I think that there were people there who, instead of being caught up in that, would rather lock the roads down and not let you get cameras in and not let you get the stories out so that it doesn't look bad. Also help pull them out. The first night that I was there, we had at least one team that was not part of the militia. They were there, I think, as adjutants, and I personally heard them talking about hunting people. And there were people down there that were hunting people. They were not hunting deer, they were not hunting boar, they were not hunting pigs, they were hunting people. I think some of them believe that they were hunting looters, but as I said earlier, after a day or two of being in shit at the fan in a situation where there's no water, no food, your most moralistic person might go into your neighbor's house and try and find food and water for survival. So at this point in time, you have people who aren't necessarily looters, but people who are just trying to survive. And if they looked like looters, they were being shot. They were hunting people. Those bodies are not being recorded in the body counts that are happening down there. And now that FEMA and National Guard took over and suspended all rescue operations, people are, they're bringing in prison ships. And I'm going to tell you right now, do not get on their fucking prison ships, because you might not come back. They're allowing the sharks and the fish to eat the bodies that go out to sea, just like they did in Hurricane Katrina. And with millions of people being displaced from their homes and their neighborhoods, you might go missing forever, and they think that you just bug.
I'm going to sit down here with Jake, who's got his dog Bubba. Jake, who is homeless. Jake, you've found yourself some shelter here. Why are you outside during this entire hurricane?
Well, I chose not to go inside yesterday because the Salvation Army and Russian Winds homeless shelter, where they were accepting people, were caught killing everybody that was in there.
I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Informed me that what they were doing was basically flushing the toilet on Port Arthur, and the bodies that they had seen from the hurricane, whether they were full of bullet holes or whether they were just flood victims, were not there during the second flooding. They had not been collected. They were being washed out to sea. So we had about $50,000 to $100,000 worth of supplies show up in the form of medical supplies, food, water, and all these different things. 100 to 150 very tacked out, very capable armed militiamen. And these, like I said, these are not the people that you see bullshitting on the internet. These are actual 3%ers that showed up and were about it and ready to go. About 3 o'clock in the morning on the last night that I was there, private contractors showed up, and they were very angry about some of the things that were going on. They demanded that I hand over those supplies and that I disperse my men and women that were there for the safety of Texans. And I refused. And I told him very strictly to his face that you're not going to tell me to disarm. I've been a part of the open carry movement. I was PR director of a very large organization, and if he was going to threaten me in that manner, I would make a very quick phone call and make sure that 1,000 armed people showed up and were ready to continue the job that we were doing. On Facebook and social media, I was talking about supplies and helping out people, but the very reality of the fact was I was using those boats and I was using those people and those supplies to make sure that armed militia were going in. And I believe wholeheartedly that we stopped a gun confiscation, and we stopped them from murdering a lot of people. Because that was happening down there. I think it's still happening down there. Some of the homeless people were freaked out. Thomas Jefferson High School in Port Arthur had a lot of people evacuated by plane, and there was at least 1,500 that were left behind that refused to get on the FEMA planes because they said that they were not making their destinations. They were not showing up in certain areas. And those people, I don't know where they were going. The 1,500 that were there, we sent a security force over to, because they almost started rioting at the Thomas Jefferson High School in Port Arthur because of the way they were being treated. And again, I'm going to tell people, we've talked about this for years, for fucking years. We talked about this. Don't go to the FEMA centers. This shit's very real. I just experienced it firsthand, and I've come home to decompress over these issues to the Ozarks while I'm still in connection with things that are going on down there. The private contractors came in, tried to disarm us, tried to take over our supplies, and I wasn't having any of it. The guy that was working with me hand in hand started carrying around an ice pick because the contractor had threatened his life, and he was ready to stab this guy in his neck because he straight up threatened our lives. I had my 357 on my hip the whole time that I was there, and this contractor was talking to us about open carrying and scaring people, but the real reality is they were trying to control the situation and take over, for whatever reason, supplies and get those armed men out of there. And he tried to take my 357 off my hip, in which case my retention skills that I've done, whether the open carry movement or my training in other areas I'm not going to talk about, I put my elbow directly on my gun as soon as he tried to grab it, smacked his arm away, and had to inform him I was going to shoot him in his head if he tried to touch my gun again, because they were trying to take over and threaten our operation of protecting Texans.
I don't know what the fuck they on. I don't know what the fuck they on. I don't know what the fuck they on.
Before these floods that, I don't know who couldn't have predicted them, but anyway, storms, just evacuations, before that, they set up about 800 FEMA camps in America. Just completely empty. And now they act like they don't really have the room anywhere, but then they're opening up these places and all these spots that they do have. Now they're just temporarily, because they really want to get us into the bigger camps that they are prepared for us to bring us all in. So isn't it ironic, people, if you did your research?
I don't know what the fuck they on. 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 I don't know what the fuck they